What's going on, everybody? This is Joe.
And Amy.
And we are back with our second to last Varia deck review. If you have missed the other videos here on our channel, if this is your first time joining us for this series, we received these cards from Guildhouse Games. We were contacted by Guildhouse Games to see if we wanted to review their new CCG, Varia. We have done 5 other decks so far. In our first video, we basically picked 4 decks for me, 3 decks for Amy, and we've been opening them alternately on camera. So this is Amy's final deck, and her first deck that she chose out of all of them, the Cosmic Mage.
I would recommend checking out that playlist so you can see the older episodes that we've done of this first, just because we're making a lot of references in these later decks based on the things that we've seen already in the earlier decks. So you might want to check those earlier videos out first if you can.
And conveniently, since Amy mentioned it, it's a very good point. Amy, why don't you maybe start opening that up since we forgot to pre-cut it a little bit?
Yeah, usually we try to make sure it's a little bit open so that we can not have to do this whole thing on camera, but yes. Go ahead, sorry. That's
okay. I was trying to do something while you were doing that. So, while you're doing that, what I will say is, please feel free to check the top right-hand corner of your screen. That little eye card will be popping out for you, and you will be able to see our playlist that Amy just mentioned of all of these previous videos. Again, we will mention other cards and our thoughts on the art, as well as our thoughts on the arts on the front of these deck boxes. So we will talk about that, or you will see that in those videos, and this will be, again, just an opening of this and the review of the deck itself. So,
did it.
Good job. So the first thing we usually do before we actually open it up all the way is check out the back of this thing. So let's flip the deck over. We can talk about this art. That's cool.
Gorgeous.
To me, is she casting that flame or blocking that flame?
I think she's blocking it because it looks like what's coming out of her hand is this sort of like celestial smoke.
Yeah, the bluish purple energy with the like star-like dots. Sure, that's fair. Interesting. Well, I mean, to be fair, we will see, right? These arts we've seen duplicated within the decks on these cards, and so hopefully the card that we see with this art on it will say whether it's a magical attack or a magical block, and then we'll definitively have that answer. But I tend to agree with you. It looks to me like she's blocking it as well, but I wouldn't be surprised if it said that this was an attack and she was casting the flame. As we've done with all these other decks, the end portion of this little blurb on the back is different, but I'm going to read the whole thing. So, it says, "Forget everything you know about trading card games. When playing Varia, there aren't any minions to protect you or walls to hide behind. Instead, you raise the shield, you cast the spell, you swing for the win with your weapon of choice. If you want to control both time and space, you'll have to master that magic yourself."
Nice.
Very, very cool. So I'm curious to see how this Cosmic Mage will be controlling time and space. But again, Cosmic makes perfect sense. So why don't we crack into this thing? We can also note before we do that, this is a 3 out of 5 difficulty rating. So seems to be, I mean, 3 out of 5, it just makes sense. Seems to be pretty even with some of the other ones that we've seen. They're outliers. We saw 1, 2 in the Divine Paladin, a 1 in the Volcanic Warrior, and a 4 in the Sixth Blade, but this is a 3 along with the Shadow Assassin and the Death Pirate, so it seems like that is the more universally held difficulty rating is 3 out of 5, which makes perfect sense. It's, slightly above average, since 2.5 would be the average, but yeah.
It's medium.
Yeah, exactly. Which is good, that makes sense. It's the best thing to be kind of spread out for multiple decks, so start opening this puppy up. See what it's got for us.
So I determined last time that if I can get my fingernail up under this lip, then I can get it out of here. But of course I clipped my fingernails since then, so I'm having trouble.
There you go. If you need some help, you let me know.
Yeah, I do.
All right. I don't know that I'm going to fully be able to get it on camera, but I will try. We go like this, and like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Not easy, but again, you know.
For packing purposes,
Yeah, it's pretty
preferable.
tightly packed in there, so. Good stuff.
Okay.
So we see the full art of the Cosmic Mage imagery.
It's really beautiful. I love this art a lot.
Yeah. I mean, again, we didn't know much about these decks before we picked them, so we kind of had the art as well as the name, or as the sole things to go off of, and I will venture a guess that you picked this more for the art than the Mage portion of it.
Yeah.
At least at first. But we'll see as we go along if that stays true, or if the Mage part actually is also interesting.
Let's take a look at the picture that's on the inside of the pamphlet
cool.
there.
Spoilers, it's on the first card as well, so. Feel free to scan that QR code. Amy, if you move your...
Oh, sorry.
Feel free to scan that QR code if you want to learn how to play the game, but if that's not something you can do or not something you're interested in doing right now, please, you can also check the description. One, to find out how to play the game, there's a link to that, but also, if you're interested in getting these decks for yourselves, if this seems interesting to you, there are those links, like I said, down in the description box below, and you can find all of that information there.
All right. I mean, this art is pretty great. I'm loving that this looks like sort of a Milky Way galaxy type of dealie, or like a, I don't know.
Constellations or something? I mean,
not really.
A nebula?
Yeah. As you've stated, I will move to the first card since it's the same art as that.
Just a little bit bigger.
And just, talk about that.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, great art. Not a ton of contrast here. The use of light is wonderful.
Yeah.
I really like how sort of the dimness of everything, but this sort of spell that she's casting is, has sort of washed over the entirety of everything with a grayness.
Yeah.
And the only things that really have color or light to them are things that are lit by this.
Yeah.
Her hand, a little bit of her arm, and just some highlights on her clothing and face.
And it almost feels like, even just looking from a distance here, it almost feels like this, they're like her behind her cloak and everything back here, the grayness that you were talking about, it almost feels like it's light or particles being kind of cast off from behind her from the energy from this spell as well.
Yeah.
Which I
like there's almost like a star dust sort of in the room with her kind of thing.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
And so this is a magical attack cosmic called Cosmic Strike, so very, very cool.
Okay, there's a couple of these.
Makes sense.
3 of them.
Yeah, that seems to be consistent. That usually, like, the first card that we see, there's multiples of it. Like, in this case, 3. I think we've seen 3 multiple times. Slip Fire? I think it's Slipfire makes the most sense to me. This is a Cosmic Fire attack, and it looks like it's like a homing attack, right? Like, it looks like she's kind of shooting it off to her upper right or upper left in this case, but it is still kind of arcing around to hit this enemy, which is kind of cool. It makes sense. It's like Magic Missile in D&D, where it hits a target kind of almost no matter where it has to go to do so.
Yeah, because this is kind of fusing looking to me.
Yeah, I like that it's curving. It makes sense to me. Again, at least from like a Magic Missile type perspective. And the flavor text says, "Fools run, cowards hide, veterans grit their teeth." So again, that makes sense. Fools run and cowards hide. So in other words, it's going to get you anyway. Veterans just grit their teeth and take it.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to me, flavorfully, for what the art looks like it's doing here. It's curving around. It's eventually finding its target no matter what. I like that.
It's another one of these that has sort of a very diagonal from underneath sort of cityscape style background.
I forget what that's called. There's a name for that. But I don't
I mean, you can talk about perspective, but I don't know that there's an actual name for that specific type of perspective. Okay, so the other things I see going on in this card, it's kind of weird. It gives me sort of like a modern type feel, with like the sort of arm warmers and leg warmers.
Bracers, maybe?
Or these are like, I don't know, I guess they're supposed to be leather or something, but they look, by like the coloration, the striping, even the amount of light that's reflecting, they kind of look rubber or even latex to me.
Weird.
And like these black things, I'm not sure what they are, but they look like walkie-talkies or something to me.
Hey, with magic, anything is possible, right?
Yeah. I hope that this is one of the arts that we will see sort of extended in another card so that I can get more of a feel of what's actually being shown here.
That's a really interesting point. Because that's not something that we've said about any of the other ones in the past where we've been like, oh, I bet you there's more to this, right? And then yet we've been surprised. So that's kind of cool that you are able to call it out and say, hey, I want to know what the rest of this looks like. Okay.
Yeah, and I've been kind of looking at all of these with sort of the lens of the Middle Ages sort of on it. But I think it's become a bit more broad than that. And so I have to kind of adjust to fit that.
Yeah, I think as I may have mentioned in the first video, it kind of lends itself, just based on the classes and stuff like that, it kind of lends itself to a bit of a D&D bias in terms of like how we're framing it. But you're right, there's no indication whether this is like fully modern. Like if any of these characters, I don't know if we saw the Death Pirate deck have any guns in it. You know what I mean? But that's like kind of the indication that it's a little bit past that point. Did we?
Yeah, we saw a revolver in her hand.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of an indication that it's a little bit more advanced than that, you know? But who knows? Because everything else, it's all, you know, magical or divine and stuff like that. So it's a very much harder to tell at that point. Like I, you know, jokingly said, with magic, anything is possible. But,
right.
You know, it truly could be. Who knows? Okay, so there's a couple of slip fires. And then we have, whoa, look at the colors on this one.
Yeah.
Resonance wave. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Cosmic water. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, because it's definitely got a thickness to it that wouldn't give you the indication that it's just energy in the air.
Yeah.
It's definitely energized water.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or some kind of a liquid.
Yeah. I actually wanted to point out that I really like the fact
I just want to see if there's another one behind it, yeah.
I just really like the fact that if you look at the top left here, just this, like, what I guess is, like, her outfit coming off of her.
What? The purpley piece? That's a sword.
Oh, so the sword, even better. So the sword matches the border of this card perfectly. I love that. Like, I've talked about them not, like... It's weird. I feel like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I think I've mentioned in the past that I like when the contrasting colors are better, and that they match well. But in this case, it's just so almost exactly the same color that it really does make it better when it like mirrors the border in the sword there. I like that a lot.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it sort of extends to this book.
Yes.
Backpack that she's got. Like our dwarf friend. He had a book backpack as well.
Oh, okay.
Hers is kind of more like a purse, I guess. But
like a satchel.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a bit nicer. You can see her sari a bit better in this.
Okay.
Than you could in like the first card. Actually, I'm not convinced this is the same character, but
different colors for sure.
Yeah. Again, that can kind of be attributed to just loose enough art direction where different artists would make it look different, you know?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's a different character.
Well, and don't forget as well, you know, who knows, but in this one, it's more of like a fire-based imagery, and in this one, it's a water-based imagery, so reddish cloak, white or light bluish cloak, maybe, but...
Yeah, so they're kind of mirroring the color of the element that's being...
I mean, that's pure speculation on my part. Who the hell knows? But
yeah,
that's just what I'm feeling based on those two examples.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is necessarily supposed to be fire-based. It's just supposed to be...
Cosmic.
Yeah, celestial.
Yeah,
but,
that's fair.
I mean, it does kind of look like a, like a galaxy or an exploding gas ball of some kind. So it's, it's definitely more the color of fire. But I would say this one, too, is like a much more traditional looking sari.
Okay.
What you would expect to see in a sari.
Sure.
The color scheme, this sort of gold bordering on here, the fact that it's the two pieces, so her stomach would be showing.
Okay.
To kind of mirror the fact that, a stomach or a belly button represents sort of like creativity, love, life in a god.
Okay.
So that's kind of like the reason why a sari is cut off like that, so you can see the stomach.
Sure.
Whereas here, that doesn't exist.
Right.
That doesn't mean that it's a different character. That doesn't mean that it's, not a sari. It clearly is, but it looks like she's sort of wearing leggings under it.
Okay.
and doesn't have the midriff thing going on here.
Okay.
But yeah, I like the colors, despite the fact that the color palette is a small one.
Sure.
So there's not a ton of contrast happening here.
Yeah.
Or complementary colors. I do really like how they sort of placed the different colors in that palette to sort of break it up, so that you can see the different pieces better.
Okay.
As opposed to kind of letting it blend.
Sure. There were 3 of those. And then we have, whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, these colors are great.
That's beautiful.
So good. This is alternate timeline. So here we go with the at least first visually obvious bit of time-based magic. Even though, because they mentioned that on the back of the box as well. And this specifically says it is a magical time card. So yeah, here's alternate timeline. Such a cool name, cool art. I love it.
There's not another one of it, so I'll just sort of squeeze close to it so I can see. Yeah, this is very, very cool.
Gorgeous.
Sort of like a going back in time and a going forward in time kind of thing.
Okay.
She almost looks like she's lit by LED lights.
Oh, but maybe that explains the 2 outfits that we saw.
Oh,
it's not about going backward and forward in time necessarily, but with the name of this card, it's an alternate timeline.
Okay.
So it's the same character, but she dresses differently because she's from a different dimension or some such.
Very cool. Very cool. I love that.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. I'm cool with that.
So it's interesting that she is standing here then.
Well, so then the question is, maybe those are 2 other versions of her.
And so there's actually a third one.
Well, right, and she's the one kind of pulling those 2 in or separating those 2 from herself or something.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Or maybe she gets to kind of choose which timeline she's in at any given time.
Ooh, I like that. Okay.
Yeah. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
And you've got these like orbs in her hands that kind of, I don't know, suggest that she's got all this energy, but don't really necessarily designate it to anything.
Right, and she's like wrapped in the representations of each of those timelines with the red and the blue.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm seeing that. Like a string of the color sort of weaving its way around her.
Exactly.
Wow. Yes. Very nice.
Really, really cool. I like this one a lot.
Yeah.
I can understand just based on the rules text needing to fill up so much space, but man, I'd love some context with like flavor text or something. That's not really necessarily a critique. It's just, I want to know more. Tell me more.
I love this sort of almost lightning bolt that's hitting her in the face. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah. And it brightens it up a lot.
Well, yeah. And like it shows the white eyes here, the red eyes here, the blue eyes here.
Yeah. Exactly. So it gives the center character, it allows the center character to be differentiated from the left and the right characters.
Right.
Which is great. So as we saw, there was only one of those. and it's followed.
Definitely a digital piece if I didn't say that, or most likely. Or again, it might be like a painted background and then a lot of digital work on top.
Okay. Reality Ripple. Yeah, the colors in this deck are the best by far.
Yeah.
So far. So good looking. So striking.
Yeah, there's a reason why I picked this one, because looking at the front cover, I got that feeling.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's sort of an Indian style theme would lend itself to that pretty beautifully.
Fair point. Absolutely. Reality Ripple, so cool. Not as much. I mean, we've had so far one card with flavor text on it out of all of them. Yeah, just the one, the Slipfire that we were looking at a little bit ago. So interesting. I want more cards or more flavor text to find out more about this character, just because, again, it's so intriguing to me.
Yeah, I love.
Fuse.
Yeah, I love the way that they, used the light and the different colors here. Sort of like the edges of this energy that are like white with this sort of purpley pink shadow.
Yeah, I think because it's like where they're meeting one another, and it's like, because it's a magical block, right? So this blue is the block, and the red looks like an attack, and it looks like the red is like almost coming through, so it gives you that little bit of like trepidation in terms of, oh no, is it going to break through, or am I going to be able to fully block it? I like that a lot.
Yeah, but like this is definitely what I would think that would look like in real life.
Yeah.
Like they had a nice determination of what these two colors of energy meeting one another would look like.
Yeah.
In that spot, Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really, really cool.
Very cool.
Gorgeous. And another cosmic water-based card, which is what we saw earlier with the resonance wave.
Yeah. And here I have to say they made the purse book look more like a purse.
Okay.
It just looks like she's wearing a purse.
I mean, mages have to carry around a lot of their magical components, that's for sure.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Yeah, and on the front cover of the deck box, she is holding a scroll.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe she just needs to carry around her scrolls in her purse.
Yeah.
I feel that. All right.
So, multiple reality ripples.
Yeah.
And then a cosmic denial.
Okay. Again, same art as what's on the back of the deck box here. But it doesn't really look like we missed anything in terms of what got cut off.
No, except whatever this random thing is in the bottom corner there, which is probably a whole lot of nothing, but...
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's a magical cosmic. So, interesting. Cosmic denial would have said to me, like, definitively it's a block. Right? Because something's trying to attack you and you're denying it with your cosmic abilities. But it's not listed as a block. It's just listed as magical. Cosmic. So, yeah, exactly. I mean, hey, the art makes it look like, and especially the art combined with the name makes it look like she's using her cosmic abilities to block the fire that's coming towards her. Again, I think we had mentioned this earlier, though. It could very well be that she's casting fire of some kind, but... I don't know, that like her cosmic abilities that come out of her hands then turn into flame and shoot out at her opponent. But
it really doesn't look that way.
No, it looks more to like a block to me as well. It just
doesn't say that.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, by the coloration of the background and her outfit, it looks more to me like our red side alternate reality lady.
Yeah.
Except that this cosmic energy looks a lot like the water cosmic energy.
Oh, okay.
To me. So, but it's hard to tell because they're both cosmic. They both have stars in them. It's just that one is like actually like space dust, basically. And one is like space dust if space dust was in water.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I like that art. It's really cool.
Yeah, so maybe it's kind of representing, like, one is a gas and one is a liquid.
Okay.
So maybe it's less about the color of it or texture of it and more about just, like, one is a gas and one is a liquid. And this could look like just a gas.
Okay.
And the color of it isn't as necessarily important.
2 of those. Whoa. Stasis.
Beautiful.
Gorgeous. It's the highest costed one I think we've seen in this deck so far. Cosmic Time. Okay.
Definitely watercolor here.
It's gorgeous.
Beautiful.
Stasis. And again, if it's Cosmic Time...
Let me just see if there's
more
another
than
one.
one.
Yeah, I
Good.
just want to look at it closer.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I mean, again, the same colors that we've been seeing in a lot of the other cards in this deck. It seems to be reds and blues blending into purples, and that's definitely what we're seeing. I like the idea of stasis. What stasis means to me is, right, she is stuck. She's preserved in this moment. And it really does look like, you know, she's like in slow-mo. In this art, you know, and so that allows her to stay that age or stay at that point in time for as long as she needs to because she's in stasis. I like that. That's what I get from this art and from the card name. So that seems
It's
really
interesting that you say stuck, because to me, stuck has a much more of a negative connotation than I'm getting from this.
Okay.
You know, the word stasis and the look of her right now to me seems much more like just a surrender to the power that she's getting from the cosmic energy around her.
Sure.
She's just, but she is, like you said, sort of floating there, sort of in slow motion.
Yeah, because like you could tell with her hair, right? Her on the right hand side there, her hair is up a bit, but it seems to be, based on the name and the rest of what's going on in the card, it seems to not be because she's falling or being, have like wind affecting her hair in some way, right? It's just, like you said.
Well, she's in space.
Right.
So there's no gravity holding her hair in place. It's just kind of floating there.
Yeah, and like you said, where her the headpiece of her sari is not fully containing her hairs, where it's kind of escaping a bit and floating up like that.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, gorgeous.
That's all I have to say.
Absolutely awesome. Still no flavor text though.
Wow.
Continuum Blade. I've seen this art somewhere, but it may be in the promotional materials on the website.
I think it was, because I don't remember seeing it.
This is cool. This is a magical attack, Cosmic Time. So yeah, Continuum Blade, that makes sense. And I'll be curious to see, a lot of the item cards from these decks are the ones that have given us the most context, I feel like, for the characters. So I guess because I'm so starved for more information about this character, I hope the items help to get us there a bit.
Yeah, it's very interesting, this sort of like portal Stargate type of thing she's got going. We saw those in the alternate timeline card as well. So we're kind of seeing it here again. The coloration's a bit different. You know, there's a lot of blue energy surrounding her, coming off of her, sort of around the portal, while the portal itself is sort of very reddish or orange-y. So it makes for a really beautiful art because you've got those complementary colors. But what it doesn't do is tell us which alternate timeline she's escaping here.
Unless she's the prime, the white one in the middle. I'll also note, just from looking at it quickly, there are these like smaller sections that make up the outside of this portal. I will note from my quick counting, it seems that there are 12.
Okay.
So to me, what stands out about that is 12 months of the year, but also, I believe, and I could be wrong, 12 members of the Zodiac.
Yes.
So those things stand out to me as what may be the significance of the number 12 in the sections of that portal there.
Sure. And if I could look at it more closely, I'd be able to tell that probably. Yeah, it does appear that there are constellations
Okay.
in there.
Right.
So I would say that they are astrological symbols.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Or at least meant to allude to astrology in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like it. And I kind of saw a sneak peek at the next card since you when you pulled it away. So it looks like we're done with the main version of this deck, and now we are into the next thing. I don't want to cut you off if you're not done.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a digital art piece. It's beautifully done.
Yeah, very, very good.
The use of light.
Striking.
Almost looks like there's water out here. Again, I think it's just this sort of cosmic material of some kind, but it's just beautifully done.
Yeah. Again, we have speaking of me being starved for the story, and obviously that's something that if it's unclear, obviously that's something we will be seeking out in the future to satiate my quench my thirst, so to speak, for this stuff. These are the characters that I want to learn most about as well, mainly because we've been seeing them in every deck, and I just want more context. But so yeah, this is Aria's Tarka again. We have definitely talked about this card many, many times because we've seen it many times.
I should have looked up the word Tarka and found out some more information about it. But
Oh, okay.
I didn't do that. I'm sorry, guys.
It's all right. Everybody else can do that on their own time if they want. Another brace yourself with our what we've called a Roman warrior, Roman soldier.
Yeah, we've seen this guy many times too.
Yeah. Huh? Yeah, there's our dwarf friend that you were talking about.
Friend with his book backpack.
Yeah, exactly. Amber Barrier. Mm-hmm. Sublimate again.
Yeah, we've seen this a million times. I haven't talked much about this art because I don't really like it.
Oh, okay. I find it interesting and intriguing. Again, sublimate definitely sounds like, I guess my vocabulary isn't strong enough. It sounds like a word that exists, and I'm just unaware of the definition of it off the top of my head. But it's super interesting because it shows this magical energy busting through this guy's shoulder, but this is called a magical block air. Yeah. So to me, what it means, if I'm to infer the meaning of sublimate from this card, what it means to me is that he is making himself lighter than air, so that this blast is going through his shoulder, but his shoulder, he's not bleeding, right? That's not blood. He's not losing his arm. It's wisping
away.
Yes. And then will seemingly, once that blast has passed through him, reform and be himself again. But he has kind of made himself semi-incorporeal or, like you said, wispy on the wind. So
very cool.
That's kind of what sublimate means to me.
Okay, very cool. I like that insight a lot. I definitely I think the fact that this art is so gray and monotone, I kind of dismissed it. I didn't take the time to think about it. Okay. So sorry about that. But I see some what looks to be leather armor on this guy. He's got a sword, pretty typical of Middle Ages. These sort of stone columns behind him, again, seem pretty typical of Middle Ages.
Yeah, and I'll also say, I mean, I was talking about flavor text a lot. I don't think the flavor text gives a lot of context to this particular art or card. It says, I'm not even mad, I'm just disappointed, from Allfather Dode. So, yeah, again, not a lot of context. Flavor, which is great, but I that's why I stick with my guess as to what this card is attempting to depict.
Now that I'm looking at it more, I'm getting an indication that perhaps this battle is causing a disturbance in the structural integrity of the structure that they're fighting in.
Okay.
Maybe the reason why it's so gray and washed out like this is because this is all dust of these columns
sort of breaking down, the roof sort of shaking, like the dust of this this building falling apart.
Okay. Interesting. I don't know that I saw that as much, but I can absolutely respect that insight. I can see what you mean here, that this might be offset. It might also be the design on the bottom here is not the same as the design on this part. Like this has vertical lines, whereas this looks like just a design on could be the base.
So
of
like
the
the base is like a rectangular piece here, and then the column is sort of separated from the base.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So we had a couple of sublimates there. Arcane Bolt. I believe this is a new, somewhat more generic card. Although
Okay, this is the other part of this card.
Oh, we finally get the context, or at least a little bit more.
So this arm
That's so
here
cool. Yeah.
is this arm,
Yeah.
and this hand here is this hand.
Yeah.
Can you guys see that?
Yeah. Very good. Interesting. Again, something else I would not have thought would need an alternate piece of art for it, but there it is. And good eye, because I don't know that I would have seen that.
Yeah, and this appears to be our mage woman here.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Very cool.
Again, the outfit looks very different, but I think that's just a different artist, different interpretation of what she looks like kind of thing. I
Maybe.
don't necessarily think that she's wearing a particularly different outfit.
Well, what I'll say is that card is a magical attack arcane, which is not something that we saw from our mage woman. We saw her using cosmic.
Yeah,
Attacks. So
and I will say
it could be just somewhat generic because all of our characters have used magical attacks. So who knows?
yeah, I mean, for better or worse, this is much more cleavage-centric. Yeah, but it does appear like it is supposed to be pieces of fabric, which, is what a sari... I mean, it is what the word sari means. And then you've got around the waist what looks to be some sort of... beaded chain or something like that you can't really see very well in the darkness.
Okay.
So I am getting the feeling it is supposed to be the same character, especially from the face and the hooded area here.
Okay. Interesting.
Okay.
All right. But I like that we got to see, because again, we mentioned that we've seen Sublimate many, many times, and now we're seeing the kind of zoomed out version of it with this Arcane Bolt card.
Yeah.
We have another Force Blister.
Yeah.
Seen that many times as well.
Gorgeous, gorgeous art. It's nice to see this color palette in this deck. This is the first time where I'm really feeling like, okay, there's a lot of green in this picture.
Sure.
To kind of give it some variety, which we have talked about a lot with the other decks.
Yeah.
But not with this one. So
Very good.
happy. I'm happy to see that here.
Got a couple of those. Lightning Conduit. We've seen this, I believe, only once before, but we have seen it. The best magic leaves little time for either. Or the best mage leaves little time for either.
Nice.
Okay. I like it. I mean, hey, really, again, we've talked about this. I love that he's drawing the lightning in with one hand, shooting the lightning out with the other hand. Very, very cool.
Okay.
A Mirrored Edge. We've seen this multiple times. I know you like this art a lot.
I do.
It's really cool.
Definitely a medieval feeling in terms of the style of the art, and the coloration is very perfect for the woods that they are in.
Oh, yeah. There's the Windshank, so the other side of that force barrier or whatever it is
the
that we
other
saw.
half of our dwarf there.
Yeah, I love him. He's so cool.
Yeah. I just love her hair.
I love the color, just the colors in general. In this deck, it is not as striking as it was in, say, the Shadow Assassin deck, in terms of the strikingness of the variety and the brightness of the colors here versus, like I said, in the Shadow Assassin deck where that was a lot darker and,
Right.
and
Everything was
more
black.
shadowy. Well, and it made sense, right? Shadow
Right.
Assassin. But
Right.
but in this case, it's a much brighter deck, and so this is not as high of a contrast image to all the other things that we've been seeing. Still great, but
Yeah, it's still a wide range of color for this particular art, and just beautifully done.
Yeah. Another Arcane Blast.
Yeah.
So we have Arcane Bolt and Arcane Blast. Okay. And here's another Magical Attack Arcane card.
Yeah. Very beautiful. I love this one a lot.
Yeah. Ah, finally. Items. So here is the Cosmic Edge, which is, what was the card that we had earlier? Give me a moment. Continuum Blade.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if it's the same thing where the portal that we saw earlier makes the Cosmic Edge into the Continuum Blade. I'm not sure if that's exactly what's happening here.
That's interesting.
But I love that art. I mean, that sword is so, or the blade is so cool looking.
Again, it's that perfect sort of cosmic color.
So good.
Like we saw in like the second or third card in this deck, where it's definitely that sort of blue or like an indigo bleeding into purple, which mirrors the sari perfectly, because those are sort of the traditional, an indigo is one of the traditional colors for saris, one of the most, or I should say, one of the earliest dyes that was used for them.
Okay. And again, the blade perfectly matches the border.
Yeah.
Just very, very awesome. And then, finally, we get some flavor text. It says, passed down from father to daughter, this regal blade is the symbol of a powerful house. Oh. So, Amy, you got a question answered for yourself, or you were proven correct. Because if you recall, in the first video, when you were looking at the art on the front of that box, you said that those colors indicated royalty to you. And they looked very regal. And so there you go. A very, not necessarily regal, but a very powerful house. I mean, it's, indicates nobility of some kind. So there you go. You were absolutely correct.
Well, that color doesn't really indicate royalty for an Indian culture, let's say.
Sure.
But for, ancient Roman, it originally came from sort of the Middle East. These snails, their shells, or like the mucus that these snails exuded.
Gross.
Was the source of this sort of royal purple dye.
Okay.
And I can't remember the name of the location exactly. Maybe somebody else knows, but it's modern day Turkey or Lebanon, perhaps. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
But I feel like it's somewhat Middle Eastern, not really Indian. But indigo is very similar, and indigo is also basically shown here.
Sure.
And indigo was one of the first actual dyes for actual saris that actually existed. And that type of dye is as old as time.
And it's interesting that you say, right, because you're talking about the snail mucus and stuff, which again, I say gross, but it's still very fascinating. But it's funny, when you said, that's one of the oldest dye colors, I went, well, yeah, because of berries. Right, so I assumed it was like mashed up berries being used to dye clothing or cloth or whatever. Yeah.
No, I'm not exactly sure what indigo is exactly, like what the material is.
Okay.
But it's some kind of a plant. The snail mucus was really the thing that created that purple color.
Okay.
And indigo's more on the blue side.
Fascinating. Definitely you learn something new every day, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see what other items we have, because again, I want more story context. Okay. The Forgotten Scroll. Okay, so and interesting. So I don't know that I've ever seen this, at least yet on these cards. The cost in the upper left-hand corner there, descending downward, has 2 action points, but also 2 like little blood droplets. And then on the card it says those blood droplets are paid for using 1 health point.
Oh.
So you have to use your health to use the Forgotten Scroll, which is awesome. I love that, the flavor of that. But it says, an old scroll written in blood. Its ancient text tells of secret magics lost to time.
Wow.
Very, very great.
But not lost to her.
Exactly.
Because she has time portal thingies.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's true. She does.
Check it out.
That was very astute on the part of the creators. I wonder if they thought of that. That's awesome. I love it. And again, I mean, we've talked about this art. It's still just as, I mean, everything that we just said about the Cosmic Edge in terms of the colors and etc., I feel like could be repeated here, just in terms of the coloration of the outfit. Plus, like, the scroll has a little bit of a tinge of red to it, but it still leans towards the indigo side of things. Plus, it's like encircled in the indigo/purple. So,
yeah, I mean, it's definitely bright and bloody. But it stands out very nicely, and it's beautiful, and, you know, it's our deck box art. It's the top of this picture.
Yeah, exactly. Which I believe all of the item cards have been. They've just been the main image from the front of the deck box, zoomed in on the different pertinent sections for the different item cards, which is very cool that they were able to keep that so consistent. Like it's almost like it was their plan or something.
No, but I don't think they put any work into that.
All right, so let's see what else we've got for these last couple of cards. I think it's
Okay.
just the like stacks and tokens and stuff, but
Oh, this is the first time I'm realizing that this on her arm here is actually like a henna, like a golden henna,
that's
as
so
opposed
cool. Okay.
to bracelets.
Nice.
She's got bracelets on the other arm,
Okay, yeah.
but this is henna here.
That's awesome. Love that. Okay. There's a Reality Ripple token. Okay. If you recall, the token cards are double-sided.
Ah.
So on the other side, we have a Flurry of Fists, which was not in this deck, but again, we've seen that in other decks as well, where like the tokens or stack cards will have token or stacks in it that don't pertain to that deck, but could pertain to other decks. And again, with only 7 decks to choose from, and I say only, I mean there's a lot of variety, but with 7 decks to choose from, it's cool that your deck might have a card that your opponent's deck needs, just to properly indicate something that you're given by the activation of their cards, if you don't need it as much.
Yeah, I think this card we saw in the 6-blade deck, maybe. I think that's...
Or Divine Paladin, I don't remember.
No, I think it was the 6-blade, but I think that was the only one that we saw it in so far.
Yeah, we've seen it in
So
only
it's
one.
not a super common card, but we do have it in at least one of the other decks.
Yeah, and I mean, it would make the most sense to be in the Mystic Monk deck, just based on my knowledge of other fantasy properties that have monks in them.
Right.
But we shall see, because that's the last deck that we still have to open. So another Reality Ripple token.
In the back of this one
Has another Flurry of Fists.
Flurry of Fists
Very
again.
good. It also could have been Volcanic Warrior. That makes sense, because the Warrior doesn't...
Yeah, I don't think it was, though.
That's fine. That's fine. Other people have the benefit of going back and looking at that playlist that was probably linked at the top
They
of this video.
do.
Again, we have, this is the stacks cards with the Chi and Eyes of the Goddess. So again, Chi, presumably from the Mystic Monk deck, in fact almost certainly, because it's definitely the same character, and Eyes of the Goddess definitively from the Divine Paladin deck.
Yes.
And then on the other side of that, because that is also double-sided, we have the classic Enraged and Fatigue.
Yep.
That just seems to be the kind of
They have
standard...
that in every deck.
Yes, because it's a much more common version of stacks to be placed on yourself or your cards. And then behind it, the final card in every deck is the Cut Out and Assemble D6 and D4. In case you don't have them yourself, again, we have said previously, we recommend just trying to find, I mean, even if the only thing that you have in your home are like traditional board games, you know, like Monopoly and stuff, that has at least a D6 in there.
Yeah.
Because that's how you roll for movement. D4s are a little bit more specialized, but most hobby shops or local game stores will have it if you're not just going to look for it online.
Right, and they're cheap. I mean, if you look for it online, you're probably going to have to buy a box of an assortment of dice.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go into your local comic book shop or whatever that would have something like that, you can buy one D4 die.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to cost you like, I don't know,
a quarter,
50 cents or something.
Exactly. I mean, it depends on the store.
It's not breaking the bank.
But regardless, and I'll get on my soapbox for a second and a half and say, hey, support your local game stores.
Yes, please.
But yeah, that is the end of this deck. Amy, this was your first choice of your decks, right? We've kind of gone in reverse order. So my top choice will be the video after this. But maybe if you show everybody the front of the box again, just to close this thing out so that it's, so that it's there for everybody to look at. What did you think of this particular deck?
I will say this was my favorite ultimately. The color schemes in this were great. I had a lot to say about the history that I feel is partially associated with this. The things that they tried to sort of hearken to.
Yeah.
And I didn't as much for Pirates or the Volcanic Warrior.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, to me, this was the best one.
Okay, so judging a book by its cover in this case worked for you.
Yes, it did.
But again, I mean, it's funny, right? I say judging a book by its cover jokingly, but again, I don't know that that's fully true, right? You looked at this character, you looked at her garb, you made those conclusions, and you were mostly, if not entirely, correct, right? Like now that we've gone through the deck, so it was at least an educated guess in terms of why you wanted this as your top choice.
Yeah.
So, congratulations in having chosen correctly. Now that we've gone inside of the deck, and I'll venture to say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you say this was your favorite. And you mentioned Pirate and Warrior, but is it fair to say that it was also your favorite in comparison to my Shadow Assassin, Six Blade, and Divine Paladin as well?
I will say, I think yours had interesting aspects to them.
Sure.
The sort of wheat field and the Six Blade, you
Sure.
know, sort of coming to the realization that was, a current that ran through.
Okay.
As opposed to, well, we're seeing it on this one card and it has no significance.
Mm-hmm.
Finding out more about the tiny arms in the Shadow Assassin deck was very cool.
Well, this had, besides the information about the sword and the scroll, this had no outside story context whatsoever, which is frustrating to me. But again, there was a lot of rules text on these cards, and that's more important.
Well, I feel like the alternate timeline card gave us a lot of information just through the picture.
Well, it gave us a lot of information to speculate on, but
yes,
we're not necessarily correct on that. But yeah, I mean, I liked this. I thought it was great. I'm a big fan of it, and I think that combined with all the other decks, I like the colors a lot on this one. Definitely. And again, combined with the border on the cards and the color of those borders, that is what stood out to me the most, because it matched so well. That is going to be the end of this particular video. Is there anything more that you wanted to say on this before I
don't think so.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't cutting you off. This has been the Cosmic Mage deck. Folks, there is one more deck to go, and that is the Mystic Monk. That will be in tomorrow's video. I say tomorrow, the day that this comes out, the next day, it will be the Mystic Monk deck, which will be the final deck review. That will not be the last Varia deck that we, or Varia video that we do on this channel, but it might be a little bit of time. We encourage you, obviously this helps us out a bit, but really because we're not exactly sure how timing is going to go, we encourage you to subscribe down below and ring that bell to be notified when all of our videos come out.
Please.
And you will find out when all these Varia videos come out. But also, feel free to check us out on social media, and you can check out Varia on Twitter as well. That is where we have, and Guildhouse Games as well, that's where we have been tweeting these, and they've been following up and retweeting us and stuff to get these out to all of their existing fans. And if you are now a fan of Varia, as we've started to become, please feel free to check the description down below. You can find out, first of all, how to play the game. Yeah. That's important. But also, if any of these decks stand out to you in any way, or if you like the game in general and the feel of it, you can also check the other link in the description to get these decks for yourself. Go to the website and you can buy them, pre-order them, pick them up. So yeah, I liked this video a lot. I liked this deck, and like I said, we have one more to go. So for now, from us here at the Geek for All family of channels, I have been Joe.
And I'm Amy.
As I mentioned with that description, you can check for a lot more other things from us as well. We have other channels, other series. We encourage you to check those out. It does help us out quite a bit. And as we always say, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.